Good evening and welcome to Legal Tech Live. This is episode 57, and tonight I'm joined by my guest co-host, Colin Levy, and I'm pointing this direction, which it may not show up that way on the recording, but that's where you are on my computer, Colin. I thank you for joining, and our guest tonight is Daniel Farris. Daniel is, and let me tell you about Daniel and the ProxyLegalApp briefly. Daniel is a partner in a BigLaw office. He's a member of the Technology Transaction and Data Protection Practice Group. Busy area these days. He's no ordinary geek. As a former software engineer and network administrator, Mr. Farris brings real-world experience to bear in counseling clients on a wide array of technology and compliance issues, including data center operations, fiber optic networking, cloud computing, information governance, emerging technologies, and privacy and data security. And I'm imagining that includes data breaches. Daniel, welcome. Thank you for coming on Legal Tech Live. Thanks for reaching out and telling us a little bit about the ProxyLegalApp. And please,
thank you for having me.
My pleasure. And Colin, thank you for agreeing to come on and share from your perspective tonight.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
And so, Daniel, give us a little background, software engineer to lawyer to now you are creating legal technology. Give us a little bit of that background, if you would.
Well, I wish I could tell you that I was brilliant and this was all planned, but that's not quite the way it worked. As you mentioned, my background is software. I was a software engineer and a network administrator for about a decade here in Chicago before I began practicing law. I worked for a telecom, actually in the sort of security field for the Office of Emergency Management Communications here in Chicago after 9/11, and then worked at Argonne National Lab. And it was at Argonne that which is a theoretical lab, that I started working really closely with the intellectual property attorneys there and thought, oh, this is interesting. I could do this. It was, I had lived through the .com period and thought, seems like there are a lot of companies out there that need some help. So got into the practice of law. And today my legal practice is technology transactions, privacy, data security, as you mentioned. Also never really lost the, desire to be in the tech space and to try to innovate and make things better, with technology. So that's how we get here today with Proxy.
And you are working really hard, it seems, because you're working during the day and then an entrepreneur by night, which is pretty common these days, as we were discussing beforehand. But tell us a little bit about the ProxyLegalApp, and then Colin, Sure. Jump in with a question if you have it after a little intro of the ProxyLegalApp. What does it do?
Sure. So we define it as a legal workflow management tool. One of the things that in practice, I and my team and many of my partners and colleagues dealt with was the constant desire from clients, particularly the in-house attorneys who were thrust into these roles that were quasi-legal, quasi-business, frankly, and especially as legal ops has sort of arisen and come of age, there's more and more kind of departmental structures, right, and operations that are required. So there, a lot of the lawyers that are in-house, some of them, have this background, some of them are very, flexible, some of them have no clue. And we found we developed Proxy to solve a couple of really easy issues, right? So we really want to help primarily in-house lawyers figure out a few key things. What's on my desk? What do I have to do? What's a priority? What can I delegate? Where things are that I have delegated, and then reporting up. So it's got some elements of matter management. It has some elements of task management. and project management. It's not any of those things specifically. That's why we've kind of referred to it as legal matter manage or legal workflow management, excuse me, because it's got a number of these different elements in it.
Excellent. Okay. Colin, jump in.
Sure. Well, that, coming from the perspective of an in-house lawyer, I can certainly relate to some of the problems that the app is seeking to solve. A question that I would have is, how has the reception been to this app? Because, as we were talking about before this started, there often is pockets of resistance to technology in general from lawyers, or, well, frankly, speaking more broadly, change in general. So I'm curious kind of how the reception has been to this tool. From my perspective, it seems to be narrowly focused, which is appealing to me as a lawyer, because it seeks to solve a simple problem. But I'm curious what your experience has been.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right, and the reception thus far has been, I think, overwhelmingly positive. It's generally been good, but I think that is a credit to our UI UX folks, our DevOps folks, and the way we went about, frankly, designing the product to be sort of more in line with modern, almost consumer app oriented, or consumer apps in its orientation, in order to provide kind of a core set of features and functionalities that are simple to use, intuitive. We try to stay very lean in the product's design. One of the issues we found is that a lot of the legal technology that's out there is very fulsome from a feature set, but requires users to kind of live in the system in order to really get the full value of it. And that's not really practical, we don't think, in today's world, right? People are in and out of email, they're using browsers, they're using word processors, they're on their phone and back, in and out of meetings. And so we wanted something that was lightweight, that integrated well with email, which we've done. Right now, our product is SaaS, but it's mobile responsive. There will soon enough be an app. So we're really trying to be responsive, right, and honor, right, and recognize the way people actually work, and not try to be the end all be all and solve all the problems, just solve a discrete set. I'll also say real quick before we move on, I think the reception has been particularly good amongst small and middle market companies. Some of the really large companies, either, Fortune 500s or organizations that may be smaller but have really large, sophisticated in-house legal departments, have many tools, right? And they're sort of used to case management and matter management and contract management and, e-billing and all of these things. I think it's that our sweet spot has been the middle market organizations that have, anywhere from 3 to a dozen, maybe sometimes more. But really that's kind of our sweet spot in terms of, the legal group, where there's enough lawyers to have sophisticated legal issues and the company's big enough to really need the help, but the group and frankly, the budget and the spend is not sufficient to have, all of the full-blown sort of panoply of products that you see. And so they need things that really, those lawyers in our experience tend to be inundated, a little bit overwhelmed. They tend to be, wearing multiple hats. And so a product that can really help them focus on, hey, what do I have to do? What's really urgent? What's really a priority? And can I give this to someone else and track it and know where it is so I can report up? We found the reception to be really pretty good in amongst that group.
And so tell us a little bit about that, who your target market is. selling a law firm, selling it in-house? Is it a variety? Give us a little bit more background on that.
Yeah, so it's the product is primarily targeted at in-house. We feel that's the group that sort of needs it the most. Though we have done successful pilots with some smaller law firms, and we are in the midst of negotiations with another BigLaw. I won't name names, but another AmLaw 100 law firm who would potentially utilize it either internally for itself or with its clients. And that's really where we feel the tool is most valuable. It's a great tool to manage kind of your day, but because of the interconnectedness, right? And in-house lawyers have to communicate amongst themselves, with the outside firms that they work with their internal stakeholders that may be, finance or sales or, whatever, IT or security, right? It may be any number of internal departments. The tool is built to be really flexible and to encourage and make easier collaboration. And so there are a decent number of law firms that are looking at it as well. But target market, right? If we're talking about who is this really designed for? It's designed really for in-house lawyers at small to mid-size companies. We have some Fortune 500s, some very, very large companies that are piloting it right now, and those responses have been good. But our sweet spot is kind of that middle market in-house legal department.
Excellent. And you now see why Colin was my choice of co-host tonight. I was like, oh, Colin will he'll have some good questions about this and give some reasonable insight. So Colin, what do you got?
Well, I can relate to a lot of what you just said about collaborating with various departments, because that's essentially what I do every day. Collaborating with finance, with IT, with sales, who pretty much every day. So that all makes sense. I guess one question I would have in terms of just the development of the tool, and you touched upon this earlier. As you were, you clearly knew the problem that you were trying to solve. But my question was, as you went about developing it, did you seek input from any practitioners who work in-house while you were developing the tool? And if so, why? And if not, why not?
Yeah. So yes, absolutely, we did. And that was really important to us. So we have an advisory board, for example, that was pretty actively involved in some of our early design and frankly in creating our feature roadmap, our product roadmap, as well as our development roadmap. And the advisory board is made up primarily of either general counsel or associate general counsel at the kind of companies that would largely be our customers, and some of them are, as well as some internal tech folk, and then also some folks that are what I'll call consumers and internal consumers of legal services, because we also wanted to understand their pain points in interacting with the legal department, right? Because helping the legal department serve its own internal stakeholders and clients is part of our goal, right? And so we absolutely did. And in fact, the way that we did we are still at the tail end of a pilot program that was phased. And part of what we did was we developed MVP, but it was very lightweight, right? We actually underbuilt a little bit intentionally, knowing that we had other feature sets that were in development and coming behind, to allow the in-house attorneys that would be our core user group, test it and then tell us what they want without sort of influencing them, right? And so, a lot, I would say 75-80% of what we heard we expected, but there was 20% that was somewhat surprising. By way of example, one of the things that we really shied away from early on was getting into DMS, right? We thought there are a million solutions out there that are much better than anything we could ever do. And as a cloud provider, we'll use APIs, we'll integrate, and allow our system to integrate easily and work with and sit on top of whatever a company is using. And what we've actually heard is a decent number of calls to actually further build out our sort of embedded DMS because folks aren't particularly happy with the DMS that they have or what they've seen on the market. So, we've had some surprises like that. I think perhaps some of the priority of the additional features, it's not that that there are features that we didn't, there are few we didn't expect, but if you go to that 80% we expected, right? We sort of knew this was coming, but the sort of sort ranking of that, right? What our users said was important to them and what we expected them to say was not always fully aligned. So we've been very responsive or tried to be as best as we can in that regard to input from in-house attorneys.
Excellent. And I want to thank our viewers here tonight. We've got Aaron Levine, we've got Brad Freeman, Joanne Kroll, and it looks like Diego Alcala is joining us. So if you guys have any questions, thanks for joining us. We are here tonight with Daniel Farris. He's created the ProxyLegalApp. You can find that at ProxyLegalApp.com. And let's jump in now. I'm sure Colin is interested, and I know I am. Let's see what it can do.
Sure.
And let's see. I probably need to give you host control.
Sure.
Now I will warn you that I get really itchy after a while when I don't have power long enough. So when someone else is drunk with the power.
All right. Well, let me try to share the screen here, and let's see. I will go here and okay. Can you see the dashboard here?
Yep, I can.
All right. Perfect. So what you have here is our basic dashboard view in Proxy, and I'll kind of walk through the various sections for you. In this, I'm logged in as a hypothetical general counsel.
I have to pause you here just
Sure.
for a second, Daniel, because this is your classic cybersecurity screen. Do you notice that there are no other browser tabs open, Colin? I mean, that's really, this is somebody who has got some experience in cyber and security and data. That's very impressive.
Yeah, I just noticed that.
Yeah, it's not my first rodeo, guys.
No, it's not. I'm sorry to interrupt.
So one of the things I'll level set with real quickly to make sure you guys and anybody viewing this understands is one of the issues that we had to solve for very early on is we asked our user base and we did a decent number of interviews as well as kind of focus groups, and we asked folks, why don't you use stuff that's out there? Why don't you use Asana or Monday or worksheets or smart sheets, or why don't you use Todoist and these sort of things? And we got a variety of responses, but they sort of boiled down to 2 or 3 main points. One was security, which is not a surprise, right? Lawyers will say, oh, well, I have privilege. I have this highly confidential stuff. I don't know what's out there. So we've built for privacy by design, security at the outset, and we can talk about that. But I'll set that aside for a minute. The second was they felt that you either had something like Todoist, which was very task-oriented but couldn't be broadened, right? It's a sort of checklist almost. It's a to-do list. Or you had the opposite end of the spectrum if you look at something like Asana, where it's a little more structured. And the reality is that what we heard is my day is both, right? On any given day, I'm working on a certain number of tasks that relate to formalized projects. And there's a hierarchy to that. There's a very clear sort of work stream. There are deadlines, and and you can organize it. But half of what I deal with is completely ad hoc. Somebody comes in my office, asks a question, right, or sends me an email or leaves me a voicemail or calls me or whatever, and I need to run something down. But once I've run it down, that's done, right? I'm never going to think about it again. But those two things in the span of a day or a few days or a week, I may have to prioritize, and I have no way of doing that. So what we created in Proxy is our base kind of item, our unit, our sort of foundational structure are tasks. And tasks can be what we call, structured or unstructured. So they can relate to workflows or projects, or they can stand alone. And so what you see on the dashboard, because they're kind of our basic building blocks, is a list of tasks, right, in this main view here, that this hypothetical GC is monitoring. It's either stuff that she is handling herself, that she has created and assigned, or that she just wants to keep tabs on. And so this is sort ranked. There's also some basic information kind of on in the upper right hand corner about deadlines that she has today, any alerts, whether new tasks have been created, and new documents. But let me kind of show you tasks real quickly. If I take you here to our task view, what you see is this is the list of tasks that she is monitoring. This can be sort of sort ranked a number of different ways. So by importance, that's sort of a high, medium, low, red, yellow, green. By status, is it new? Is it in progress? Is it blocked for some reason? Is it awaiting approval? Urgency, which is sort of due date, right? What is due, soonest? But the default view is this my rank. And this is, if you've ever played fantasy sports, I think of this like the fantasy draft. You can move things around, and it will only change that individual user's ranking. So I can say, I don't care how important somebody else thinks this is. I'm moving stuff however I would like.
So even if Colin and I are working on the same thing, I think it's more important, I move it to the top. It doesn't impact his view.
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct. From this list, one of the things we wanted was to provide information really quickly and easily. So if you look at this, right, any one of these, I'll look at the by proxy because that's what I want everybody to do. But you'll see there's, just from this view, the task is immediately editable, but you have a bunch of information. So, right, it's a low priority task. Here's the task name. This current status is new. It's assigned to me. It's due on 8/15. I could mark it as complete by hitting this checkbox if I wanted to. I can change it now to in progress if I wanted to, which I'm doing. You'll see now it's in progress. And this little button here that looks like a paper airplane is something that we found really valuable, that we got a lot of. We heard a lot of feedback from in-house lawyers saying, there's a lot of times when I just need to know the status of something, and I can't go back and dig through Outlook or dig through my inbox, whatever it is, Google, or whatever, and find it. So I just want to be able to ping somebody. So when you click this, you'll see down here in the corner, it says ping successfully sent. This just sends an email that says, hey, this person wants an update on the status of this task. And the user gets a link to the task, right, and a notification that the user who sent the ping asked for it. If we open up the task, you can see there's more information here. I can associate this task with a workflow, right? So one or more tasks can be associated with a workflow. Workflows can go into projects. I'll show that in a minute. There's, right, some notes that go into this to keep track of status. There you'll see up in the corner here. I'm not sure if that shows on the in Zoom, but I just got the notice that that I got an email saying, hey, what's the status of this? You can upload, right, documents associated with this. It's a drag and drop or browse. You can tag as well. There's any number of tags. So I can create custom tags or use tags that exist already. So I can say this is, well, let's not say India. Let's say this is, commercializing, sales, whatever. And then there's a task history here. So there's audit trail for anything in the task.
Sorry to interrupt. Just a question about the tagging. When you apply a tag to something, does that group things under that tag, meaning that you can search for that tag and you'll get everything that tag is associated with? That's
right. That's exactly right. You can filter by tagging. You can search by tagging. There's the ability to actually, in fact, we're in a staging environment here that I'm demonstrating to you, not a production environment, but in a soon to be released new update, there will be the ability to actually do multiple tagging as well as sorting by other things. So I can do a date range. I can say, I want to see all of my NDAs in this date range that were high importance in Asia, right? Or things like that. So the idea is to make this very flexible, but to try to allow users to get information very quickly. Okay. So let me update this. And I'll demonstrate quickly just kind of the way projects and workflows work here. So here you'll see kind of the idea. You might have a bigger project that's an in-house. If the HR department is working with legal to do a new employee handbook, or you might see a privacy compliance program, right, that involves IT, your CISO, some ops people, whatever it may be. You could organize these into larger projects. So here, if I click on this project, what you'll see is there are multiple team members associated with it. I can see multiple tasks what their priority is. Again, you can do tagging and due dates and those things at the project level, but you'll see there are then multiple workflows that get associated, right? So, for example, in the employee handbook, I might need technology policies, leave policies, workplace safety policies. Again, I can sort rank these, right? I can change status. I can view them, et cetera. So if I go in to view one of these, I can see what's in there.
Okay.
Let me show you how this.
Got a question here, and Colin may have to collaborate with me on this question. Once this policy is updated, let's say the leave policy. Colin's working on the leave policy. Mm-hmm. It's updated. It's done. Colin, what do you do from there? Do you have to give a leave policy? Is that on a file online that everybody can view? If he wants to then update it for the rest of the company, now that this is the updated, how does that happen? And can he save it? Can he take it from here and put it into however the company views that?
That's a great
absolutely.
question. Ask that.
And that goes a little bit to the DMS piece. So I'll jump to that real quickly. But here's our documents tab that we intended to be fairly simple and straightforward. Now what we're seeing, right, is we're building this out. So we have a couple of different views. One is just view all, so that you can sort things very quickly by who uploaded it or what the date was or by document name. These are clickable, right? So, as you click it, there you go, test document, pulls it down, opens it for you. You can get some of the same history on this, right? So you can tag documents. You can get the audit trail here as well. But let me give you the directory view, which starts to get a little more into the DMS piece, right? So this is where we'd integrate with various DMS, and you start to get kind of a folder system, right? So as I'm looking at the handbook and I'm looking at the policies, right? And then, so, hey, no laser guns at work for the workplace safety policy, right? Sure. You can see, obviously, this is a a meaningless document.
Yeah.
It's a calendar doc, but right. And so it starts to give you some of that DMS stuff as well.
Okay.
And then certainly you can push this out from here, right? As I mentioned, one of the nice things is email integration. And I'll show you that in one quick second. In fact, let me jump to that real quickly, right? So we all, tell me if you're seeing the Outlook now. I just want to make sure our screens are showing. I think I'm still showing the...
I still see the dashboard.
Yeah, you still see it. Let me just change which screen I'm sharing real quickly. Hang on one sec. While I move that. All right.
I will just recap for everybody here. Morris, Carol, Aaron, thanks for being here. Brad, thank you for being here. If you have any questions for our guest, Daniel Farris with the ProxyLegalApp. This is workflow and task management. So if you have questions, please post them on Facebook and I will ask Daniel.
Thank you. So one of the things that we really wanted to do was, let me make sure you're seeing this one. Okay, there we go. One of the things that we really wanted to do was be able to integrate with email, right? People live in email, and trying to force them to not do that, we think is kind of silly, right? So one of the things you can do with Proxy is we have created the ability, if I have a new task, and this can be a forwarded email, this doesn't have to be a new email, it can be a lot of things, right? But if I was going to say, hey, I need Daniel to do something here, or let's say the general counsel, right? I'm me. So I need the general counsel to look at something. I can very easily send an email to this create task. I can also identify that it by putting another person in the to field, that it should be assigned to this person. Mm-hmm. If you're doing projects and you want big groups, you would copy more people. But I can say, this is a new task. That's now going to be the name of the task that gets created. I can show, right, these are the notes for the task. And then I can go so far as to, include a document. And as I hit send here, now I stopped sharing. Sorry, I sent that. Let me go back real quickly to here, and I will share you back. Okay, are we back in? Everybody seeing?
I can see it.
You can see the dashboard or cannot?
Dashboard. Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, perfect. So if I now go look at the task view, right, again, for this Susie general counsel person, it's going to be at the bottom here. But if I say, so there you have it. The task is in, it's assigned, right? It's going to assume the due date is today. I can now open this and say, all right, now that it's in here, well, now I want to make it high priority. I want to associate it with that, it was the handbook.
No lasers at work.
No, that's right. Here, I'll just say, so we'll put it in the data protection stuff, right? I can tag it, right? I can say DPA. I could say, say GDPR, right, et cetera. And right, update this. Now it's all updated. And, unfortunately, it's at the bottom here. We actually also have something coming out that will pop task to the top. But, this is all changed now, right? And, in fact, you'll see you also are getting the audit trail of exactly what's happened.
Okay.
Right? And if I wanted to say, oh, well, I forgot something here, so let me quickly add another document. It's that fast, it's up, and now there's another document in there. So, the idea is that it's supposed to be very easy. If this general counsel, for example, receives that task and says, well, guys, I'm real busy and important. No way I'm doing this. right? She can very quickly just say, hey, I need to send this to, Andrew, Deputy GC, and reassign it, and now it's off her desk and onto somebody else's.
Okay.
So
I think I've got a pretty good feel for it. Colin, how about you?
Yeah, I definitely do. One question that I just had, although I think this could probably be accomplished by what you just showed, is once you reach the stage where you have, say, your PTO policy and you've got it all settled and now you just need people's approval, you can kind of do what you just did and just have people approve it via email and create a task where you send out it for approval and get approvals that way, right?
that's correct. Right now, the way we're handling that is with tasks as approval. One of the things that we're building in, so a couple of things that are coming down the pike. One is the ability real time to mark any of the items, but we'll say use tasks for this purpose, to mark a task as attorney-client, work product, or confidential in real time. The other thing is to designate an approver. So when everything else is complete, instead of creating a separate approval task, say that the task is complete, and before it could actually be closed and completed, it would go to the approver. So those are both things that are in our active roadmap right now that we're working on rolling.
That sounds great. The reason why I asked that question is just from my experience that comes up a lot in terms of, all right, well, we've got a final document here, but now we have to make sure we get approval. And then, did you approve that? Did you approve that? Well, I did, but did you? And all that. And it'd be nice to be able to track all of that.
Yes, agreed. Down the road as we go further on this, one of the things that we want to be able to do, again, a little bit related to kind of the DMS or even contract management side of things, is as you're marking up a document, you could, enter comments, in a document or a red line and tag it with a user. So that user specific, it's, specific to that user who has to approve. So when it goes back into the task, the system can quickly identify whose input is needed and sort of auto delegate. So you don't have to do that. Obviously, we're iterating here and we're still in the early stages, but we have grand plans if we can get there. But I think some of that is coming down the pike to, again, try to make your life easier so that when a document comes in from, let's say, outside counsel and you need input from IT and finance and sales, if the system can permit your outside counsel and you can train your outside counsel to tag things properly, you won't even have to do anything, right? It allows you to sort of put some of this stuff on cruise control with appropriate, guardrails and all that sort of stuff. So,
right.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So now I do want to get to, I don't want to take up the whole time I do want to find out what's your go-to-market strategy. Are you guys in beta? Are you, and I'm going to claim host. I'm not sure you needed that for screen share. Let's see.
Take it back.
I'm taking it back. I get so nervous without the power. But yeah, let's hear the go-to-market or are you in market? Do you have paying customers? Let's hear pricing strategy, all that.
Sure. So yes, we are just finishing pilot and starting to convert pilot customers. So far, that's going pretty well. Knock wood, it continues. Our pricing strategy is sort of. It's a combination enterprise seat license strategy. It's really big blocks because it relates to resource utilization, both from a compute standpoint and storage. Obviously, as you get more users, that the DMS can get heavier, and you're using a lot more SAN. So our pricing will range. We have micro organization pricing for smaller, less than 10 kind of users or, very small entities. I think we define that as less than 50 million in revenue or less than 100 employees. Don't quote me on that, but something like that, where pricing would be about $3,000, and then it's up from there.
Is that a month? Is that a monthly cost?
Monthly, monthly. Up to many tens of thousands on the enterprise side with very large organizations. But most of our stuff kind of falls in about the $5,000 to $10,000 range. Mm-hmm. And what we found is if you're an organization with, let's say, 10 in-house lawyers, and you use 3 to 5 outside firms on various things, the cost ends up being the equivalent of about 2 to 3 billable hours a week, or efficiency gains of about 5% or less on the in-house side to make it worthwhile. So the numbers can be parsed a lot of ways. It costs about less than $1 on most cases per user hour for the core users of in-house lawyers. So the way that I like to say it is, look, for $8 a day, if I could make you, if I could reduce your outside legal spend and make you more efficient, and be able to collaborate better with your internal stakeholders when you take it, most people, pull their wallets out when we have that conversation. So, from a go-to-market strategy, right now we're very focused on converting our pilots because they were here early. We have a sort of formal full market launch coming later this fall, likely in September. I see no reason for that to get delayed, but we just haven't fully announced a launch date. It's likely to be, fairly soon after Labor Day, as sort of a full market launch. Anybody who's interested today can certainly go to our website or reach out to me. We'll make exceptions if you want to get in early. But it's also multi-channel, right? From a launch standpoint, we have a referral program. We have some word of mouth that we're doing. We, as I mentioned, are working with some law firms that are going to implement it for their clients in that regard. And we're starting to hit the circuit with all the conferences and all that.
Good. Colin, I'm going to ask it for you because I know it's one of your pet peeves. Is the pricing clear enough to you?
I would say that it is. My question, my follow-up question would be: is that pricing going to be upfront on the website?
that's the
yes.
pet peeve. That was the pet peeve.
Let me actually, while you're asking that question, I might see. So our website launched without it, specifically because I wasn't satisfied that our pricing tool was sufficiently developed. So our pricing tool will work like this. There is a slider for number of users, which will translate into the monthly based subscription fee. You then have a choice, one of 4. You pick one of 4. Multi-tenant hosting on AWS, dedicated AWS, dedicated Azure, or dedicated secure private cloud. We're working right now with a partner on that. It's likely going to be INAP is our data center provider. You can toggle a couple of other choices, whether you want a higher level of support, whether you want training, whether you want, a few things like that. And then it spits out a price. So, obviously you can contact us. We will give discounts. You get discounts, for multi-year agreements and those kind of things. But the pricing tool is a tool that, right, based on what you're clicking, gives you a bottom line price that's pretty definitive.
That's good because Nick is right. That's one of my pet peeves is when I see so many legal tech companies that have this product, but then you have to contact someone to get a price, and then of course you get stuck in that whole, well, we can do this, we can do that, and then it's a battle to try to get a number out of them. So
We are not doing that. That also annoys me. In the very near future, I think actually either tomorrow or over the weekend, our pricing tool will be up. So, if you check back early next week, Colin, you will be able to see it and take a look. And I welcome your feedback to tell me if you think it's clear enough. We're not.
I very well may follow up on that with you.
Please do. Please do. I'm serious, because we'd love to hear it. And we're not trying to do the upsell, and frankly, right now we're trying to sell our product. So there's not a lot of professional services behind this that I'm trying to trick you into. It's a pretty straightforward play. So we wanted to be pretty clear about that, so folks could go and price this on their own. And we try to not only give a price, but give some of those statistics that I talked about to try to actually translate how the price relates to value.
Good.
On that point, I think that's a really important point to have, because I know from my perspective, at least, trying to sell leadership on a tool, you really need to have a strong business case backed up by metrics and backed up by ROI, and to be able to have some of those numbers, I think, with you is helpful. And then obviously you yourself need to tweak them a little bit depending on how you work and what your environment is like, but that's helpful as well.
Well, and our goal is, again, even if you were to ignore the outside legal spend savings, right? If you're an in-house department with 10 lawyers and you've got 20,000 hours of work, right? If I can make you 10% more efficient, or complete 10% more tasks, the system more that, or the cost of proxy, is less than the cost of that FTE, right? That would account for that extra 2,000 hours. And then when you start factoring in outside legal spend, with BigLaw rates as they are, it's in some instances, if you're dealing with some of the really high priced outside attorneys, saving 5 hours of time, in a month is enough to pay for the system. So, we also recognize the budget constraints. And so, that was an issue that was very important to us early on. And frankly, it aligns with our strategy. We didn't want to overbuild, right? And that's useful because we can make a product that, frankly, that requires less investment, and that means we can sell it for a price that's a little more reasonable, and actually get it in the hands of the people who need it.
Right. That makes sense.
That's good. That's good. Colin, we're about 48 minutes in here, guys. I don't want to keep Colin because he's on the East Coast. So, Colin, any last-minute questions for Daniel?
So I have a broader question for Daniel, which is, during the course of developing this product, what were some of the, more surprising challenges that you faced, and how did you end up overcoming some of those?
Sure. That's a great question. So I think probably the hardest thing for us is we wanted a system that was flexible, but intuitive. And that is that proved a lot more challenging than I would have anticipated. In retrospect, it sort of makes sense, right? Because as you create flexibility, you're creating these, feature sets or units that are really amorphous, and that creates the flexibility, but that takes away from the intuitiveness of it because people have to sort of, have the creativity to figure out, right, how it's going to work. So we heard a lot of, for example, we have this concept of, tasks, workflows, and projects. And to us, it's just taxonomy, it's semantics. But we heard a lot from in-house lawyers, oh, well, those aren't the words we use. We don't really understand what those mean.
Right.
And frankly, that's a real issue, because from a UX perspective, right, and making a tool that people can see and just sort of understand, even though the feature set is simple, it actually creates some challenge. So I think that was probably our single biggest challenge to date, was that issue. We've, of course, had some basic issues that you would expect, from email integration issues to, building to be flexible to integrate, right, with other systems and having the appropriate open APIs and all that sort of stuff. But probably that was our single biggest issue, I would say.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense to me, because I know lawyers, especially in-house lawyers, are very particular about kind of how they work and what they call things, and why they call things certain things. Don't even get me started, but that makes sense to me.
There are frustrations in this business.
Yeah.
Right.
There are. So, Daniel, before we wrap up, I want to say hi to Chase Hertel, or is it Hertel or Hurdle? Do you know, Colin? Chase?
I don't actually. I was afraid to ask. Frankly.
Yeah, he's here. So thank you, Chase, for joining in. Great guy from the LTRC, or Legal Technology Resource Center, and that's the ABA's Legal Technology Resource Center, I believe. Great guy. I need to find out how to pronounce his last name so I don't screw that up next time. Daniel, how do people get in touch with you if they want to hear about it? And also, don't disappear after we stop recording. I'll have some comments afterwards. But how do people find you?
Sure. So the website for the product is ProxyLegalApp. That's PROXY legal app, app.com. The parent company is NMBL Technologies. There are no vowels. It's what the kids do. So it's NMBLtech.com. And folks can reach out to me. You can certainly find me on in LinkedIn or Twitter, but you can certainly email me as well. I'm D Farris, Farris, at NMBLtech.com too.
All right. And Colin, thank you so much for being a great co-host tonight. How do people find you?
So to find me, they can go to my website, which is colinslevy.com, COLINSLEVY.com, or on Twitter or on LinkedIn. I tend to be fairly active on all those platforms, so it shouldn't be that difficult. But thanks for having me as a co-host. This was a lot of fun.
My pleasure. And that on Twitter would be at @CLevy_law. And Daniel, on Twitter, because you're in the legal tech field now, so Twitter is where we primarily congregate. What is your Twitter handle?
So I'm personally, I am at Daniel L. Farris, Farris. And you can also connect with us or find us. We have at ProxyLegalApp and at NMBL Tech as well.
Excellent. All right. Well, thanks so much. And thank you, everybody who has joined tonight and watched. If you have any questions, reach out to them. And my guest co-host tonight is Colin S. Levy. And his website, again, colinslevy.com. And our guest tonight was Daniel Farris, Daniel L. Farris. You don't need a middle initial for me, at least not now, because I have such a bizarre last name. I realize that, but you can find me at Nick J. Rishwain on Twitter. Daniel Farris, NMBL Technologies is the parent company, and the application tonight is ProxyLegalApp. And you can find that at ProxyLegalApp.com. This will be episode 57 of Legal Tech Live, and I thank you both for being here tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks.
And thank you for everybody who viewed. We look forward to seeing you next time.